Israel actually released the names of their 1,400 people who were killed in the Hamas terror attack on October 7th. And what I'll click here for you so you could see is they released it like this and said, here are the 1,400. And then people went in and they looked at the names, and a bunch of them said like sergeant or lieutenant. And what they did is they highlighted the people who were actually military. So the white here are civilians. The yellow is military. And what it looks like is over 50% of the people who were killed on the Israeli side were actually military. So I'd say looking at this, maybe 55%, 58% of the people killed on the Israeli side are military, which means the inescapable, unavoidable conclusion, based on the numbers, based on the math, is Israel is killing more civilians as a raw number and a percentage compared to Hamas. Stop and think about that. Stop and think about that.
So Israel just released a list of all of the victims of October 7th. It is quite an extensive list, and it has all of the names. Weirdly enough, the names don't have commas between them for some of the lines, so it's really hard to read what name is what, but moving on. Someone managed to read it, and they determined that all of the highlighted names were not all 1,400 Israeli civilians. They were actually Israeli soldiers. Quite a large chunk of them were Israeli soldiers, as you can see. And then some of them were first responders like police units. And I fully understand that lives are lives and nobody's life should be cut short. But this sort of mass manipulation is what you have to keep an eye out for. Because Israel will claim that those 10,000 Palestinian civilians, actually a load of them were Hamas. But Israel will then forget to mention that their civilians were actually IDF soldiers. So whenever you see something that's pro-Israeli, you need to then take what they've said about someone else and then see if it projects back onto them. Because a lot of the time, Israel is projecting what they do onto others.
Breaking news. Israel has revised their death toll from the 7th of October from 1,400 to 1,200. In other words, math is now a matter of opinion. It's either that or 200 people have just had the greatest escape since Houdini. Mathematicians believe there's only one reason for this numerical error: Hamas.
Okay, so this article and another came out that give first-hand accounts of what actually happened on October 7th, and it is shocking. This is the other one that goes over some testimonies from October 7th. First, Tuval Escapa, a member of the security team for Kibbutz Be'eri, set up a hotline to coordinate between kibbutz residents and the Israeli army. He told the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that as desperation began to set in, quote, the commanders in the field made difficult decisions, including shelling houses on their occupants in order to eliminate the terrorists along with the hostages. Another report that was published to the Haaretz noted that the Israeli military was, quote, compelled to request an aerial strike against its own facility inside the Erez crossing to Gaza, quote, in order to repulse the terrorists, end quote, who had seized control. The base was filled with Israeli civil administration officers and soldiers at the time. An Israeli woman named Yasmin Parat confirmed in an interview with Israel Radio that the military, quote, undoubtedly killed numerous Israeli non-combatants during gun battles with Hamas militants on October 7th. Quote, they eliminated everyone, including the hostages, she stated, referring to Israeli special forces. As David Sheen and Ali Abunimah reported in Electronic Intifada, Parat described, quote, very, very heavy crossfire and Israeli tank shelling, which led to many casualties among Israelis. The helicopter, you guys may have seen a video of this yesterday. Apache attack helicopters also figured heavily in the Israeli military's response on October 7th. Pilots have told Israeli media they scrambled to the battlefield without any intelligence, unable to differentiate between Hamas fighters and Israeli non-combatants, and yet determined to, quote, empty the belly, end quote, of their war machines. Quote, I find myself in a dilemma as to what to shoot at because there are so many of them, one Apache pilot commented. And then again here, Apache helicopter pilots have admitted to firing continuously without intelligence on targets, while tank crews were ordered to shell homes, regardless of Israeli hostages potentially inside. Bodies of Israelis discovered below the rubble of a home destroyed by a powerful explosive blast are said to have been caused by tank shells. Israeli security forces also opened fire on fleeing Israelis whom they mistook for Hamas gunmen. By the day, there is more and more accounts of people who survived on October 7th giving stories just like this.
Israel has revised their death toll from 1,400 to 1,200, which is interesting because Joe Biden said he has no confidence in how the Palestinians are counting their numbers. This is also to remind you that survivors of the October 7th attack said that Israel was shooting at them. This is their own people. Now, the events of October 7th were horrific, and I'm not in any way trying to downplay that, but you have to consider what level of security protection Israel has and how unbelievable it is that a bunch of people with air balloons and leaf blowers came in, and that a lot of the people that survived it spoke of Israel shooting at them. Now, Israel does have a history of shooting at their own hostages, and this is due to the fact that someone that isn't alive anymore doesn't have to be used for a prison swap. So they usually prefer not to negotiate and just take them out themselves. But yeah, I'll update you guys if the number changes again.